What's up, everybody? All right, I saw something really cool. It was one of the Guitar Mastery trailers, and she was explaining that playing fast is not easier than playing slow. Okay, and you're gonna hear that a lot in this kind of like lead guitar journey, so to speak. Now, the concept isn't necessarily coordination, musculature. We all know that playing really fast does take a lot of concentration, it does take a lot of training. This was a little bit more musical. Okay, so what I want to give you guys is a little bit the starting basics of this actual concept, okay? So let me just give you an example of what we mean when we say playing fast is easier, technically, musically, right? Because if I go like this, I'm not even going to necessarily play that fast at first. I'm in A Dorian. Right, keeping it consistent. All right, so that's not even that fast, right? But because there is no melody there, and it's just this consistent, eighth note sort of a feel, there is no underlying musicality other than every note sounds fine. Now, none of the notes are embellished at all because everything is just a streamline, okay? So what I mean by that is, technically, if I play that A minor, right, this note and that note should fit so well over that chord. But those aren't fitting over those chords any more so than that note that I pass over. Why? Because the notes are just coming out at a stream. None of them are spotlighted. Everything is just, everything kind of has the same value when you're doing that. Right? So nothing is going to be out or in. In a sense, everything is going to work. I'll put it that way, right? So if I did something like this, now you can hear, okay, those notes are out of the key, right? And they spark out at you, right? But those were the only ones, not anything else depending on what the chord was. So that's just to show you guys that unless you're spotlighting the notes, that there is no reason, or I'm sorry, there is no, I don't want to say musicality, there is no playing over the changes. The musicality is almost done, and now it's almost just like a scalar exercise. Now that is the same thing where if I were to do this, right, I just wanted to show you guys, because at least on the slower version you can hear the notes coming out, but that would be like if I did, those are too fast, especially, and again, just kind of like a machine gun coming out, where it doesn't matter what I'm playing as long as I'm playing within that scale, right? Actually, not necessarily even that true, because I could just kind of do real quick chromatic runs as well, as long as they weren't too far out, and I skipped over them really quickly, used them as a passing tone, to get to the next scale tone. So that is what we're talking about. Now, I love that style, right? I love, even if you get into like some of the shred stuff, okay, what they're doing is not rambling like that, okay? And even in kind of like the metal shredding, whether it's like even like a flamenco style, it's not just shredding, for the purpose of doing it up and down the scale. What they're doing is they're using fast and slow melodic together. So this fast will contrast with the slow melodic. Would be like if I did, right? If I did that kind of stuff, because that's more the style that I would play in. Now those two are contrasting. You're spotlighting now a little bit more of the slower melodic notes, okay? So to work on that is a very simple numeric system that I want you guys to try. So I'm in Dorian right now, all right? It doesn't matter actually at all what mode you decide to use, what scale you decide to use. I would use a mode or the major scale, something with 7 tones instead of the pentatonic with 5 tones, just so we can get into how you're using those notes, okay? So, Dorian, whatever mode it is that you want to use. Okay, we have the 7 notes of the scale. All right, so even if you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, if you know that the 3 is flat, if you know that the 6 is natural, if you know that the 7 is flat, whatever it is. Okay, what I want you guys to start with. Okay, now let me break out a door and I'll just go to major. All right, because most people can at least get through their major scale, right? A major. So that way you don't have to worry about sharps and flats. So I want you to take a 1 chord, A, and then a 4 chord. All right. I hope that at this point, you guys know the numeric chordal system, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 is our half diminished, and then back to the 1. So all you're going to do is take a 1 to a 4 chord. Okay. You can put a loop pedal on, record it on your phone. You can go as slow as you want. 2 full measures each. All right, this will give you a nice bass, right? Something to follow along, something that you don't have to listen to too intently that pulls you away from what you're playing, because that 2 measure feel gives you enough time. So in the triads of each one of these chords, okay, the 1 chord, you have a 1, a 3, and a 5. That means if you count up, for you guys that don't know this right offhand, if you count up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, every time you have a 1, every time you have a 3, and every time you have a 5, it's going to fit over that, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. Each one of those notes is going to fit over that chord. Now, if we take the triad for the 4 chord, it turns into a 4, a 6, and a root note. So anytime you get a root note, a 4, or a 6, do the same counting that you did. Root note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. All right, so those notes are going to now work. Any root note, any 4, and any 6, okay, are going to work over this 4 chord, okay? Why that becomes important now is you're no longer rambling through just right? You're going to be able to start targeting. So now is when we get, like what we talked about before, once we start slowing down, spotlighting certain notes, all right? So if I have this, I'm using this first part, I'm starting, so the starting note will have a little bit of a spotlight on it. I'm outlining that chord, 3, 2, 1, for my A chord, right? So 3, of course that 2 works, and I'm not going where the notes start to lose their intrinsic value because of how fast they're going, right? You can't grab onto them, so perfect. Then I skip over the 7, and I land on the 5. So I'm just doing 3, 2, 1, 6, 5 over my 1 chord. Those are my spotlighted notes there. And then just taking that 5, sliding up to a 6 for my 4 chord. All right? That is how I'm choosing to spotlight those, okay? I can do it now if I do something like this. All right, now what I'm doing, or I kind of play that last note there. Starting on my 1, still spotlighted, even though I'm jumping right to my 2, but back to my 1. So even that little motion of a 1 to a 2 back to the 1 is almost like you're just embellishing the 1, right? You have that 1 note, right? Just that pop up just embellishes the 1. It doesn't really nail that 2 very much, right? And then going just down the scale, skipping the 7, going down the scale and ending on this D, my 4, for my 4 chord. All All right? So it becomes that easy. Now, if you guys want to, you can write out a melody numerically. You know what I mean? And maybe not give maybe not even give the rhythmic value of each one of those notes. You're just kind of saying, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a 1, 2, 3, 2, and then I'm going to go up to that 4 for the 4 chord. Write it out, just those numbers so you can follow along with it, and then play whatever rhythm fits over whatever rhythm of the progression you're doing, right? Now, the next phase of this is if you take something like when I was doing, right, 3, 3, 2, 1, 5, 5 into the 6, right, is now taking that and moving it around the scale. What I mean by moving it around the scale is start on the other 3, right? Or, I'm sorry, it would be 3, 3, 2, 1, and then 5, 5, or 5, 6, however it was that I played it. So that you know where those target notes become. You know all the ones, 1, 1, 1, right? 2, 2, 2, going through the scale that way. So you're not just able to locate every single 1, every single 2, every single 5, every single 3, kind of jumping around like that, but also being able to build in those melodies. If this is a lot and you do start getting lost as far as the numerical system is concerned, don't forget you can always visually use the chords, right? Just look at that. So in this, just look at the notes that are actually in that chord. You may not know right offhand that that's the 3, but it's in that bar chord, right? You may not know that that's the 4 right off the bat, but it's in that chord, right? So just another way to utilize your spotlighting notes. Doesn't need to take away from any of the speed you're doing. It doesn't need to take away from kind of like that that machine gun. Maybe you want to do a whole phrase, of 8th notes and 16th notes, and then end. That especially, if you have that long of a phrase of sort of that machine gun sound that then ends somewhere, that ending note is going to be so spotlighted because it's so rhythmically different. So, and I know that rhythm is something that I do push a lot here. So I want you guys to take that, like I said, just doing it. Now, if you do want to use the modes, all right, it all works the same. You know what I mean? So, your 1 chord, if you're doing triads, is your 1, your 3, and the 5. So if it's minor, it's 1, flat, 3, 5. But it's still, it's still the notes, the numerical notes counting from 1 to 7 and then recounting again, no matter what mode it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, and upwards. If that's sort of the way that you want to think about it without thinking 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, you can always just kind of pinpoint it like that. So that would be the next phase, is doing the same thing with each one of the modes. Like I have Dorian here, right? So even just that. Right, kind of fumbled a little bit there at the end. But just outlining that A major. Right, and then I'm ending on that A major, but I'm ending on that A major when it goes to the D chord, right? Because that A major's in my D chord, right? So this is an A minor to a D natural, a D major. So, and then I'll do the same phrase, then sliding into that 6 for that 4 chord, which in Dorian is especially significant just because each one of the modes are going to have certain color tones that really bring that mode out, and that natural 6 is one of them. So I want you guys to take that, see what that does for you. Go back and go through it. This is awesome too, because it's something that you can do as you're moving forward, and something to work on continuously. So this isn't really like a video where you would just watch it and be like, got it, and then move on to the next thing. This is something you can kind of consistently revisit. And if you're doing triads right now, like we said, the 1 chord is the 1, the 3, and the 5. Whatever mode it is, 1, the 3, and the 5. Right? The 2 chord is the 2, the 4, and the 6. Right? The 3 chord is the 3, the 5, and the 7. 4 chord is the 4, the 6, and the root note. Right? 5 chord is the 5, the 7, and the 2. So it just jumps up like that, right? That's our triad. Whatever the root note is of the chord, right? If it's 4, right, you skip over the 5, you go to the 6, you skip over the 7 and go back to the root. Every chord is set up that way for the triads. So I just recommend doing a 1 to a 4, because that really brings out a lot of the other tones for the mode, or a 1, a 4, and a 5. So back to major, 1, 3, 5 for the 1 chord, 4, 6, and root for the 4 chord, and then 5, 7, and 2 for the 5 chord. Right. So that'll cover you up for the whole mode. So if you do that nice and slowly, you can really get good at knowing where you want this where you want this phrase to end, based on what the next chord is going to be. All right. So I feel like I've ended this video and then I kept going like 3 or 4 times. So awesome, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. I will see you soon.